Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Tuesday, April the 3rd, and welcome to our video commentary. I have a post over at the American Thinker today where I express some disappointment with this campaign, this movement to bring down statues or symbols. I mean, we all kind of went through this a few months ago here in Dallas when there was a statue of Robert E. Lee that they wanted to remove. They did remove it. Now they're trying to figure out what to do with it. This whole thing ended up costing the city a ton of money, which I guess they didn't realize it was going to cost them that much of money. So that became kind of controversial anyway. But I think that, we're seeing it. It started out with Confederate symbols, but now it's moving into, and then it went into Columbus, okay? And now it's moving into presidents of the United States. The other day I was watching, for example, some interviews with some students at a college that has the name of Washington. I don't know if it's George Washington College or Washington and Lee. I'm not exactly sure what the name of the school was, but they were asking some students about George Washington, and like the only thing they knew about George Washington is that he had slaves, which is incredibly ignorant on the part of these students. I mean, they're not just they're absolutely historical ignorant. Of course, George Washington had slaves. Most men at that time or prominent people or ranchers of that time, not just in the United States, but all over the world, had slaves. I mean, it was a common practice. I'm not defending it. I'm not justifying it, but it was the way it was. Like women didn't have the right to vote back then. Women didn't participate in politics back then. Again, I'm not defending it, but that's the way it was. So, we're judging people what they did 250 years ago or whatever by standards of today. So they want to change Washington, they want to go after Jefferson. And now there's an incident, and I talk about this in my American Thinker post. There's a town in California where they want to remove a statue of President McKinley. Now, for those of you who may not remember your history, President McKinley was elected in 1896, as he was a Republican, elected in 1896. He ran for re-election in 1900, was re-elected successfully, and then in 1901, I think October of 1901, he was assassinated, and then Theodore Roosevelt, Vice President Roosevelt, became President Theodore Roosevelt, or Teddy Roosevelt, a very consequential president of his time. But the allegations against President McKinley is that he supervised, or during his presidency, there was some genocide against Native Americans, so we're going to take down the statue. Look, at some point, this has to stop. I mean, because otherwise we're going to be a country without statues. And a country without statues is like a family without photos. I mean, if you walk into somebody's home and there aren't any family photos, and you ask the guy, well, tell me about your family. And he says, well, no, I don't want to talk about anybody in my family because they're all imperfect people. Well, countries are imperfect too. Okay, and there are things that countries do that were done in the past that maybe we don't approve of today, but we don't start taking down statues and changing street names or changing park names because we're offended. Okay, it's simply, it tears up the country, which is what I think is happening. We're tearing the country up in the name of some political correctness or new historical standard that in itself it doesn't make a lot of sense. This new historical standard basically is like this. It simply says, white people are bad, everybody else is a victim. Well, that's not the way history was. That's not history. That's not a realistic view of history. It's not as simplistic as that. It's a lot more complicated. Now, the beauty of the United States, what I find really irritating about this movement, is that the beauty of the United States is the ability to correct itself. I don't know of any other country in the world that has done more to correct its past mistakes. For example, by opening up opportunities for minorities. You have all kinds of opportunities today if you're a young minority because it is recognized that your fathers, your grandfathers, and so on didn't have them. So opportunities are created for you. Affirmative action had a lot to do with that. So we as a country have gone the extra mile to correct these injustices, but yet there are some people who just want to destroy everything. And I think it's very bad. I think it's bad for the country. It's going to divide the country significantly, and I just don't know what else to say. But I think what this movement really needs, and this movement is basically coming from the left of the Democrat Party, what this movement really needs is for a Democrat, a liberal Democrat, Bernie Sanders, for example, Senator Bernie Sanders, Senator Elizabeth Warren, a Democrat of consequence, a liberal Democrat of consequence, to give a speech and say, folks, this has to stop. Enough is enough. Yes, we've made mistakes, but we've made great improvements. But this tearing down statues, where we're going to bring down every statue that offends us, again, we're going to end up as a country deeply divided, but at the same time, we're going to end up as a country without statues, meaning we're a country without history. And if you don't have a history, good or bad, it's very difficult to pass on your culture to the next generation. So I am really calling on a liberal Democrat. No conservative Republican can do this. Only a liberal Democrat. A liberal Democrat needs to do a Nixon to China moment and say, okay, enough is enough. Enough is enough. We have to accept our history the way it is. We can talk about the mistakes, but bringing down all of these statues is simply way over the top. It has to stop. And it takes a liberal Democrat with the courage to stand up to the left wing of the Democrat Party and say something like that. I don't see any in the horizon, unfortunately. Where is Joe Lieberman, though, when we really need him? Where is Senator Joe Lieberman? Because he's the one that comes to my mind when I think about something like this. Have a wonderful day, everybody. We have all of these in our blog. We have them on Twitter, and we also have them on YouTube, where we have an account there as well. Have a good day, everybody. Talk to you later. Have a wonderful Tuesday. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.